welcome to our special coverage of China's latest space mission. I'm Jiao Yang. Today, China will send a cargo ship loaded with supplies to its Tiangong space station, which is nearing completion. And right now, we're watching live pictures from Wenchang in Hainan province. The cargo ship is expected to be launched at 10:03 Beijing time, and it'll be carried by a Long March 7 Y6 rocket from the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site. Tianzhou-5 is the final resupply cargo mission in this current and second phase of the Tiangong's construction. The cargo includes supplies that will support China's next manned mission. Construction of the space station is expected to be completed by the end of this year. And let's bring in our reporter Sun Ye, who's at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Hi, Sun Ye. So how are preparations and last-minute checks coming along there?
Hey there, Jiao Yang. It's barely a week ago that we are here to see the taikonauts, the Shenzhou-14 crew, enter into the Mengtian Space Lab module for the first time, giving us that first glimpse where the three taikonauts, all of Shenzhou-14 set, entering that three-module combination, that T-shaped China space station assembly, is a dream come true. And today, they are possibly getting even more wishes fulfilled. As you said earlier, Tianzhou-5 is bringing supplies for the taikonauts, not only for them, but also the Shenzhou-15 crew who are rotating, and the Shenzhou-14 crew would be hosting for a little while before the end of this year. Now, they are ready, as we heard earlier throughout the day, the Shenzhou-14 crew they are anticipating, and when Tianzhou-5's cargo arrived, they will be unpacking and perhaps to deck up China's space station even more before Shenzhou-15's arrival. Now, here at the Beijing ground control, as always, we've heard throughout the year they would be updating before the launch. Today is the same. The system, all across the system from Beijing Control Center, they are ready. They have hundreds, if not over 1,000 solutions for different scenarios for the launch and later docking process, and they have what they call a full element rehearsal in the past few days already. So I think the message is pretty familiar to both of us by now through all these launches in the past 2 years, that everything here at the Beijing Ground Control Center is in good hands. Jiao Yang.
Well, best of luck to everyone there. Thank you so much. That's Sun Ye at the Beijing Aerospace Control Center. Tianzhou-5, as we said, is China's last resupply cargo mission in this current construction of its space station. Liu Jiaxin has more about the highlights and the challenges of this particular mission.
Rain or shine, Tianzhou-5 is ready to go. Meaning heavenly boat, it is an automated cargo craft that functions as the main resupply vehicle for China's space station.
我们的载货比的话，应该是在国际处于第一的位置吧。
Tianzhou-5 has the world's highest cargo load ratio. It can carry a total of 6.8 tons of supplies, including 5.3 tons of cargo and 1.5 tons of propellant. It can also carry more test payloads compared with Tianzhou-4, including a popular science satellite, a fuel cell, and a high-energy particle detector.
November is the rainy season in Wenchang. With rain falling almost every day for a week, many people are concerned about the rocket. But rocket designer Wang Xi says there's no reason to worry.
长征7号火箭在设计之初
The Long March 7 rocket is made to withstand water, moisture, and wind. We also gave it water-resistant treatment before moving it to the launch pad.
The Tianzhou-5 is the last resupply cargo mission of the construction of China's space station. It's the 10th launch so far of the project. Many call it Space Express because in space, deliveries always go before people do. And this mission is going to lay a good foundation for the next crew to aboard China's space station.
China's space station now has a T-shaped structure after the successful launch of 2 lab modules. Tianzhou-5 will be the first spacecraft to dock with it. Liu Jiaxin, CGTN, Wenchang.
Well, joining us here in the studio is Professor Yang Yuguang, who's with the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation and Vice Chair of the International Astronautical Federation Space Transportation Committee. Professor Yang, great to have you as always in the studio with us. So this particular mission is quite yet another milestone moment, isn't it, for China's space mission, being the last resupply mission for this current phase that we're in. So if you can talk to us a little bit first about the Tianzhou-5 itself. How's this cargo spacecraft different from the previous ones in terms of its design?
Well, you see, this time is really special. You see that we've already watched the launch of from Tianzhou-1 in 2017 and to Tianzhou-4 last year. But you see that the Tianzhou-5 is really different. The most significant point is that you see that when it will dock with the Tiangong space station this afternoon, you see there are astronauts inside. So this is really special. You see, from Tianzhou-1 to Tianzhou-4, when it docks with its target, either the Tiangong-2 space laboratory or the Tiangong space station, they do not have astronauts inside. So this time, when it approaches the Tiangong space station, we will have the Shenzhou-14 crew inside. And the importance of the Shenzhou-14 crew is that if there is some malfunction of the automatic docking system, they can switch to the manual docking mode and then ensure the success of the docking itself. This is really important. You see that although the rendezvous and the docking technology is already very, very practical for all these space capable nations, either US, Russia, or with China, but still it is a very risky operation. So the backup of each mode, either the automatic mode or the manual mode, will be very, very important to ensure the success of the whole flight mission. So just before this mission, during the Shenzhou-13 mission, the Shenzhou-13 crew used the Tianzhou-2 cargo spacecraft to test this technology, which means that that it is a cargo ship and do not have astronauts inside. So the astronauts use a control panel on board the Tianhe-1 core module. There are handles and buttons and also monitoring screens. So they operate or piloting the Tianzhou-2 cargo ship remotely and tested the docking technology manually. So this is a very necessary technology. It must be mastered by China to ensure the operation for the next decade. This is really important. So today, we can say that we are more confident for ensure the docking of both spacecraft.
So a big difference this time is that there's going to be people on board to receive the deliveries, right?
Yes.
And what kind of deliveries will be in this cargo? I mean, this is a resupply mission geared towards the next crewed mission, isn't it?
Yes, you know that the major task of this Tianzhou-5 cargo spacecraft is to deliver the resupplies for the Shenzhou-15 crew. They will stay in the station for half a year. So this is really important, and I can be sure because you know that they will have the Chinese New Year next February. So in the food, I can be sure there are dumplings inside. So that's really interesting for the next year. And
something
also, you see,
as
the announcement of the China Manned Space Agency, the Shenzhou-15 crew has already been selected. So I can also be sure that in this food there are special food for the certain person.
Right.
You see.
Let's talk about the details a little bit later, please,
yes.
Professor. So right now we've got our reporter Zheng Yibing, who's joining us from the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site. And Yibing, so Tianzhou-5 is going to be taking off very soon. What's going on there right now?
Well, yes, here at the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site here in Hainan, all systems are ready for the mission. Today, we had a pretty good weather here compared with that on Wednesday when the vertical transportation of the combination of Tianzhou-5 cargo ship and Long March 7K rocket was conducted in a mild rain. Today, the weather condition is no doubt better than that one on Wednesday. We have the gentle wind and the beautiful sunshine, but here at the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site, the cloud is a bit getting sick, just like the Tianzhou-4 cargo ship launch mission in May this year. The temperature now is about 23 degrees Celsius. The launch site went through the last joint drill of launch on Thursday, and now the Long March 7K rocket coated on Y6 and the launch pad is ready for the mission after the refueling. This is the last resupply mission before the completion of China's space station by the end of the year. Earlier, I talked to the launch commander, Wang Yuliang, who said he and his teammates are confident about the mission, which is conducted in a zero launch window, which means it has to be launched in very short launch window. Otherwise, it could be postponed to the next window. And they're confident about the cargo ship's quick docking with the station, and they're hyper-focused on the countering emergencies and have more than 20 emergency plans and makes this mission safe and sound.
Well, you were on site for some previous launches too, so the Tianzhou-5 and the Tianzhou-4. So talk to us about your experiences from that. What was memorable?
Yes, this is the third time I participate in a Tianzhou cargo ship launch mission. The first Tianzhou mission was conducted in 2017, so literally it's only the predecessor for the current missions. And the very first cargo ship mission for building China's Tiangong space station was conducted in May 2021, that's last year. Well, that mission was coded the Tianzhou-2. It was delayed for about a week due to technical problems, but it was a complete success and supplied materials for the Shenzhou 12 manned missions and the crews. And since then, I joined the report for cargo ship at the site here. For me, every launch mission, I mean Tianzhou-3 in September last year, Tianzhou-4 in May this year, and now the Tianzhou-5 mission here, they are all unique. Either they were conducted in the morning, afternoon, or late at night. They are all beautiful. But what I want to show you now is a badge for each mission, which show their differences in the docking. Take a look at the badge here. And there are two, from the Tianzhou-2 to Tianzhou-5. Let me show you. Well, this one is a Tianzhou-2 cargo ship. We can see the cargo ship Tianzhou-2 docked with the Tianhe core module. That was happened in May last year. And this one is a Tianzhou-5 cargo ship mission. We could see in China's space station now is already taking the T shape, and Tianzhou-5 cargo ship is going to dock with it. So each Tianzhou cargo mission bears the unique role and wisdom in China's space station is about to be completed by the end of the year. So from the perspective of the aerospace amateur, I want to say thank you so much for your contribution to make this happen. Back to you.
Well, you're becoming quite the badge collector. Thank you so much, and enjoy the launch there. Well, in the days leading up to the launch, tourists and rocket chasers were already checking in for the event, and many have high expectations for the upcoming mission.
My friends were here for the last couple of launches. I saw the video they sent, so I decided I couldn't miss this one.
The view is striking. The beach is beautiful. I've watched countless rocket launches on TV, and I'm excited to see the launch pad in person.
I've seen a dozen launches in Wenchang. The weather here from September to March is usually unstable for launches, but the conditions for this launch look really good, and you can see the clouds clearly, which is really rare.
I wish Tianzhou-5 every success, and I wish China a fruitful future in space, not only for China's space station program, but also for future missions like asteroid exploration, Mars sampling, and manned lunar missions.
Well, let's get back to our guest, Professor Yang Yuguang, who is in the studio with us. Professor Yang, so we were talking earlier about the cargo that's going to be on the Tianzhou-5. It's 6 tons of cargo. How does that compare with previous
well, you know that generally speaking, there are 2 kinds of cargoes. One is a resupply in the pressurized module of the cargo ship, and the other is the propellant. As introduced by your reporter in the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site, this time we will have 6.8 tons of resupply, and including 1.5 tons of propellants. You know that during the former missions, we've already brought sufficient propellant to the Tiangong space station. And And so this time, the amount of the propellants is reduced, so we can have more payload for the daily life of our astronauts and also for the scientific research. So this shows that our refueling technology and also the operation of the Tiangong space station is already very, very practical.
Right.
You know that the status or the technical specifications of the Tianzhou-5 is similar to the Tianzhou-3 and Tianzhou-4. It's different from the Tianzhou-1 and Tianzhou-2. For the Tianzhou-1 and the Tianzhou-2, inside its service module, we have 8 tanks to install propellants. But for the Tianzhou-3, 4, 5, we only have 4. This is because what I mentioned, because we don't need so much propellants at this stage.
Right, well, we've got less than half an hour to go until the launch happens now, and we were looking at live pictures from Wenchang earlier. So earlier as well, when we were talking to Yibing, you couldn't really see much behind him, right? It looks slightly foggy over there, and he said the last few days it was actually raining. Is that going to make much of an impact for the launch?
Not so much. You see that as the technicians has already introduced, during the designing phase, we already considered this factor, the influence of the rain. If it is not too heavy, so it is affordable, and also the same situation to the wind. So as just shown on the previous screen, there are echoes of the wind and also the rain on the screen, on the big screen of the flight control center. So we are monitoring the weather in real time, and if it is not too heavy, it will not influence the launch itself. Moreover, you see that during the design phase of the flight control, you see that the navigation, guidance, and the control system will also consider the influence of the wind during the flight, because you know that the basic requirement to the flight of the Long March 7 carrier rocket is that it must bring the cargo ship to the same orbital plane of the Tiangong space station. This is a very restrict requirement to its accuracy. So during the flight, it must measure its right position and velocity and do the right adjustment during the flight. This is very critical for the success of the whole mission.
Well, we're getting a much clearer view now of the rocket itself and the spacecraft. So Professor Yang, at this stage, all the platforms are open, and the rocket is really not far from launch itself. What sort of, just talk us through the kind of stages that we can be expecting for the launch?
Well, it's about T-minus 30 minutes counting down, and at this stage, we've already completed most of the checking of the vehicle, of the launch vehicle, and also, although as you mentioned, the rotational platforms has already been opened.
They're fully open now.
Yes,
right?
it is fully open. But you may notice there's still some arms, rotational arms, still connected to the vehicle, very close to the vehicle. This is because at this moment there are still some cables and pipes connected to the launch vehicle, because you know at this moment the electricity is supplied from the ground, from the launch pad, not by using the batteries on the launch vehicle itself. This is really important to saving the energy, saving the battery of the launch vehicle. Yes, only about 7 minutes before the launch, when all system is okay, and this moment we will switch the power supply from the ground to the batteries on board the launch vehicle. And we are checking all these kind of things now. And I should also emphasize that the launch itself is not only a business of the launch pad and the launch vehicle, it is a business of the whole system. For instance, during the launch, you may heard that the voice of the commander and also the voice of these other ground stations. And only when all these systems are okay, we can continue the launch. Because you know that during the flight, we will also monitor the flight status of the launch vehicle by the ground stations near the Hainan province and in other, such as some space tracking ships, our Yuanwang space tracking ships. And also, we will utilize our Tianlian data relay satellite to establish the communication link between the launch vehicle and also the
We're just seeing a prompt there on the screen saying that the second comprehensive check is being conducted right now.
So as I mentioned, during the counting down, we will check different systems and different parameters of the launch vehicle and also the Tianzhou cargo spacecraft. And if everything is okay, we can continue the next step.
Okay, and the launch is expected to happen at 10:03.
you may notice that on the top of the cone shape there are white forks. This is because that we use what we call a cryogenic propulsion system. It utilizes the kerosene and the liquid oxygen. You know that liquid oxygen can only be stored in a very low temperature. So it keeps its temperature by vaporizing some of the oxygen and brings the heat out of the launch vehicle. And because that the liquid oxygen is in a very low temperature, so when it is released from the launch vehicle, the water vapor near the launch vehicle will be frozen, and you can see the white fork.
All right, well, Professor, let's talk a little bit later in the show. The CGTN's Zheng Yibing has been speaking to the commander who's in charge of launching the cargo ships for the China space station. So let's hear from him.
Wang Yiliang is responsible for all 4 Tianzhou cargo ship launch missions that have formed the China space station since May 2021. He and his teammates are devoted to the last resupply mission before the completion of the station by the end of the year.
The success of this mission is very important. It provides both the necessities for the 2 crews in orbit and the relevant scientific equipment for experiments.
Well, this is the first time you participate in the Tianzhou cargo ship launch missions. So can you share with us what's your feeling now?
I feel really confident now that our rocket and cargo ship have gone through tests for more than 1 month and still remain in good condition.
And among all these missions, what is the most impressive part in your experiences and memories?
The most impressive one was during the Tianzhou-5 mission. A problem appeared, but we thankfully located and solved it. This was etched into our memories, and we became hyper-focused on countering emergencies after that. We now have more than 20 emergency plans.
From your perspective, what are the best qualities for the commander and his team?
I'm the Dongyao launch commander, but the road is not about just me. It's about the whole team. The most important thing is for us to trust each other. We need to believe that each one of us has the skills to lead well in our post and coordinate and solve problems.
Well, Professor Yang, so we're looking there at the Long March 7 Y6 rocket. So all the different spacecraft launchers use different rockets, right? So for the supply cargo ships for the Tianzhou series, they all use the Long March 7. And if I understand correctly, then for the manned space missions, that's the Long March 2? F2F, and then and then different ones for the lab as well. So what is different about each of them, and why particularly the Long March 7 for this one? Let's start with the Long March 7.
Well, that Long March 7 has the capability of launching 14 tons of payload to the low Earth orbit. So it is the right launch vehicle for the cargo ship, because our Tianzhou cargo ship, the total mass is about 13.5 tons. So it is the capability not too big and not too small. And also you see that the Long March 7 belongs to the new generation launch vehicle of China. It is adopted a 2.5 stage design. The core stage have 2 stages. The first stage and the second stage both has a diameter of 3.35 meters, and it uses 4 boosters with a diameter of 2.25 meters each. And the Long March 7 launch vehicle use the what we call the YF-100 rocket engine, which plays a very major role in the new generation of standard launch vehicle. The core stage, the first one, use 2 of these engines, and each of the boosters use 1 of these engines. So during the liftoff, there are 6 this kind of YF-100 engines, and the thrust of each engine is about 120 tons. So the total liftoff thrust is more than 720 thrust. Very, very powerful launch vehicle. And the second stage of this launch vehicle use 4 YF-115 rocket engine. Each has a thrust about 18 tons. So this is a 2.5 stage launch vehicle, and all these engines use, as I mentioned, the kerosene and liquid oxygen as a propellant. And this propellant is very environmental friendly. You see that the product of this combustion is only carbon dioxide and water, and also it is
non-toxic.
No toxic and not any corrosive things. So this is a new generation launch vehicle. It is a mid-sized launch vehicle dedicated for the launch of the cargo ship. And what you mentioned, the Long March 2F is the only human-rated launch vehicle of China, because you know that it will launch the Shenzhou spaceship with humans on board. So this is raise a very high requirement on the safety reliability to this launch vehicle. The initial designed reliability is 0.97, which is a very high requirement to this launch vehicle. The rudiment of this Long March 2F is the Long March 2E. But the Long March 2F added a malfunction detection system on board this Long March 2F. So the reliability figure raised. And also another system very special called the emergency escape system was also mounted on this Long March 2F. You can see the emergency escape tower, very thin tower on the top. So with this help, the safety to the astronauts can reach to 0.997 at the initial stage. So this is already very high reliability, which means only in every 1,000 launches, only in 3 cases may threaten the safety of the astronauts. Okay. So this is also very important.
Is that how does that compare with international standards? And just 17 minutes now until launch.
Okay, so it's already very advanced comparing with the launch vehicles of other countries. But you know that this is not the final phase. In the future, China will also develop a so-called a new generation human-rated launch vehicle. At that moment, our capability, you know that the total mass of the Shenzhou spaceship is only about 8.1 tons. But in the future, we will have a launch vehicle and the payload, the new generation manned spaceship will more than 20 tons. And also,
so that they can go up there with more cargo as well?
A more heavy spaceship. You know, that's the potential of this new human-rated launch vehicle. The capability is more than 27 tons to the translunar orbit, which means that in the future, our astronauts can visit the moon with this new generation launch vehicle
so
in the future.
Go further, basically. With
exactly.
Higher payloads.
And as you mentioned, also during our China Manned Space Engineering program, we have 14 systems. During these 14 systems, we have 3 launch vehicles: the Long March 2F, the Long March 7, as you mentioned, and also the Long March 5B.
That's what was used for the labs.
Exactly. You know, that's the total mass of both the Wentian and Mengtian are more than 23 tons. Very heavy. And also the length of the Wentian is about 17.88 meters. So it is very big and very long. And only the Long March 5B have this huge payload fairing to envelope the whole lab, as you mentioned.
I mean, even just looking at the images that we're seeing, the Long March 5, I mean, the Mengtian was not long ago that it was launched. The Long March 7 that we were seeing just now is a lot slimmer than the Long March 5.
Yes. Usually we call the Long March 5 the Fat 5.
The chubby
because
5,
this is because what we called in our field called the ratio of its length comparing its diameter. You know that the Long March 5 the family has the largest diameter, about 5 meters, which is the biggest in China. Actually speaking, the Long March 7, the launch day, the core stage, as I mentioned, the diameter is 3.35 meters. This follows the standards of the old generation.
Professor, so we're at 15 minutes now to the launch.
Okay, it's T-minus 15 minutes counting down.
That's right, and this is significant in the preparation stage, isn't it? This 15-minute launch time.
And we can hear from the voice that the commander announced this 15 minutes counting down, and also there will many technology status change at this moment.
And at what point will all the staff be evacuating the area?
Yes, this launch complex is called the 201 launch complex, comparing with the one for the launch of the Long March 5 series called the 101 launch complex. So this launch complex is to launch the Long March 7 series and the Long March 8 series. Both these rockets has a similar diameter in its core stage, 3.35 meters. And as we have already discussed, in the next several minutes, we will change the power supply from the ground control to the vehicle's onboard battery. And also
that would mean that the rocket itself will be completely independent now.
Exactly,
from the ground,
and also
right?
you know that there are some pipes. Just before the launch, we will also unplug all these pipes because you know that still we need to continue to refueling to the tanks the liquid oxygen. Because it
is that still going on now?
I believe it's already completed.
Okay.
When we see that the white fog disappeared, it will means that the refueling is already accomplished. But at this moment, you can still see that.
Steam,
so still we are pouring the liquid oxygen into the tanks because it continues vaporizing.
So at this point, are there still staff around the launch pad, or have they all evacuated?
Yes, as I mentioned, there are rotational arms very close to the launch vehicle, and on the tip of the arm we have the pipes and the cables still connected to the launch vehicle. And we can see the payload fairing. This payload fairing, the diameter of this payload fairing is 4.2 meters. Because you know that the maximum diameter of our Tianzhou cargo ship is 3.35 meters. So the 4.2 meter payload fairing is big enough to put the Tianzhou cargo ship, spaceship inside. And this time we've already optimized the arrangement of the cargos. So this time we can put more cargos inside the pressurized module of the Tianzhou cargo ship.
How far away would ground staff have to be away from the launch pad to be, sort of a safe distance?
I believe at this moment they've already escaped from the launch pad because you know that the flame of the Ratty engines is very dangerous for the ground staff.
So what's a safe distance then?
I believe at least 1 kilometer away.
1 kilometer, right? Because at 1 kilometer, you can still very much feel the impact, right, from the rocket launch itself.
So you can also see other so you can also see other powers around this launch pad. It's to avoid or protect the launch pad from the thunders, the lightning from lightnings. So although the rain is not a very big problem for us, but the lightnings and the thunders are really a very serious problem. So we must avoid from the damage from the lightning.
So the storm condition is not great, but slight rain or slight fog.
Yeah, exactly. You see that the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site is very close to the equator. This is advantage, but because it is on the seashore, we must consider the influence of the rain, the storms, and also even the salty fogs. You know that because it is near the sea, and the salty fog is corrosive. So we must consider about that.
But this is still, Wenchang is still the most ideal launch pad, right? Despite all these
yes, not only because it is close to the equator, but because you know that when we ship the launch vehicle from the factories, we ship from the factory in Tianjin. Near the seashore and to the Qinglan seaport in the Hainan province. So during all this process, you see that they do not have any limitation to the size of the launch vehicle.
So it's the most convenient logistically speaking as well.
Yes, exactly.
Well, we got.
It's really hot there.
Yeah. We're close to 10 minutes now until the launch happens.
Yes, 10 minutes, T-minus 10 minutes and counting will be another critical checking point for the status of the launch vehicle.
What will happen then? What sort of
checks? And we will check, you see that the commander of the ground control will confirm that each tracking station is okay, and also the status of the is near T-minus 10 minutes.
So we're starting the countdown now. We just heard the announcement there for the 10 minutes, T-minus 10 preparations. So this would be definitely an exciting mission, I mean, in terms of what it signifies for China, doesn't it? I mean, now we're heading towards this moment where there will be more than 3 people, the most people that will ever be on a space station, 6 in total.
Yes. And the necessary step is to deliver the right supplies for the Shenzhou-15 crew. So that is why this Tianzhou-5 mission is really important for our Shenzhou-15 crew.
So about 6 tons of cargo. Obviously, fuel is would that take up the most bulk of the cargo?
No. More than 5 tons of cargo is resupplies, and only about 1.5 tons of propellants inside the 4 fuel tanks in the service module.
Ah, that's all that's needed.
Yes, you know that's the space station orbiting the Earth in a very low altitude, so the refueling is very, very necessary. So that is the reason why each of the Tianzhou resupply mission, we have the propellants refueled to the station's fuel tanks. It is very interesting that inside this fuel tank, we have the bellows, like the bellows of the accordion. So it can change its shape and pull the propellants from the fuel tanks of the Tianzhou cargo ship to the tanks inside the station.
Oh, okay, I see. I think we got a close-up of the boosters just now on the rocket itself.
When we see the white fog disappeared, which means that the refueling procedure is completed. And inside the tanks, we already have sufficient propellants, liquid oxygen.
I mean, this is a very frequent launches now for China and the space program, isn't it? I mean, with this year, we've seen lots of launches, and we've seen the manned mission as well. And then just a week ago or so, it was the Mengtian Lab module.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, this sort of speed. I mean, how does this compare really on an international level? The sort of frequent launches.
China has reached the top 2 of the numbers of launches for many years, and in several years we reached the top 1 among all these space capable nations. And moreover, you see that just today we also have a launch in the Taiyuan Satellite Launch Center, launched Long March 6A launch vehicle. This is really special because it uses solid rocket boosters, not like quite different from the other of China's launch vehicles. So this is also a really special launch. This is the second flight of the Long March 6A. But as you mentioned, this year we have so many launches in our China manned space program, because this year is right year for the construction of China space station. As you mentioned, that after we launched the Shenzhou-15 mission and they meet the Shenzhou-14 crew in the Tiangong space station, they will complete the construction of our Tiangong space station. Although that at the current stage the T shape has already been formed, but it does not mean the completion of the station, because we still have a lot of work to do, such as the integration of the thermal control, the integration of the data handling system and the communication system, the integration of the whole environmental control and the life support system. So all this work needs to be done by the Shenzhou-14 crew and the Shenzhou-15 crew. All these are very, very necessary.
So that would belong to the third phase, would it?
The second phase.
That's still the second phase.
Still the second phase. Okay. And after the construction, we will entering the normal operation of our Tiangong space station. Okay, so 6 minutes counting down.
That's right. So just 6 minutes to go until it lifts off. So this rocket is 53 meters tall, right? Is that one of China's tallest?
No, it's not the tallest, but very interesting that the tallest one is also belongs to this Long March 7 family. It is a Long March 7A launch vehicle. It's also taller than this launch vehicle. The Long March 7A can be recognized as the derivative of the Long March 7. It added the third stage to the launch vehicle. As you mentioned, this Long March 7 is a 2.5 stage rocket, but it added a third stage, which can be used to launch very high altitude spacecraft.
Right. So when you say 2.5 stage, what's the half that we're
The half is the 4 boosters.
Oh, okay. So these all need to be jettisoned at some point.
Yes, exactly. Okay, 5 minutes counting down.
Getting closer to that time, it must be quite nerve-wracking for them, even though they've done it many, many times already.
Yeah. As we mentioned, the diameter of our 4 boosters is 2.25 meters, a little bit smaller than the core stage. And each of these boosters use one rocket engine called the YF-100, which the thrust of each engine is more than 120 tons. So it is, currently speaking, it is the most powerful liquid rocket engine of China.
Wow. And how long will it take for the rocket to reach the space station, do you think? The spacecraft.
It depends on the arrangement of the flight mission. You see that in this year, we know that during the Mengtian mission, it takes about 13 hours from the launch to the docking. But for the cargo ship and Shenzhou spaceship, it will be much faster.
So, I mean, a lot of this, the timing of the launch, that also depends on, you were saying about the orbit positions, right? So
Exactly.
You want the shortest
Quite
time
right, quite
possible
right.
to reach.
They must entering the
station.
same orbital plane. This is the most important and the most strict requirement to the launch. So only when the launch vehicle brings the payload into the orbit, they must inside the same orbital plane. So you know that the Earth rotates 360 degrees 1 day per day. Okay, the ground controller commander is checking the status. Okay, we can see that the white folks are disappeared, which means that the fueling is already accomplished. And next we will see these arms will rotate from away from this launch vehicle, and all the cables and the pipes will be unplugged.
3 minutes to go until launch.
Yes. I believe at this moment the power supply has already been switched from the ground to the launch vehicle itself.
So making the rocket
it
now
uses its own
independent.
battery.
Right. So then what sort of a window are we looking at then for the launch if it needs to be on a very precise orbit, the closest distance to the space station?
Quite right. As Sun Ye had mentioned, we use a zero window technology,
window.
which means that the accuracy of the liftoff time is better than 1 second.
Wow. I mean, for China to get to this zero window, how long did that process take? Is this something that as technologies become more advanced, then you
Actually speaking, we achieved this very early in 2011 during the launch of the Tianzhou-5 spaceship. You know, the Tianzhou-5 is the first one to conducting rendezvous and docking with the Tiangong-1 target vehicle. Okay, 2 minutes.
Even though it is just a cargo spaceship, it's still quite nerve-wracking, isn't it?
Yeah,
still
exactly.
feel the tension.
And next we will see that the rotational arms will be rotated away from the launch vehicle. And we have cameras monitoring the process.
We were able to see the launch also happening from the angle of the rocket itself. There you go,
okay,
the arms are opening up now.
Yeah.
There, as you can see it happening, the arms are leaving the rocket.
And all pipes and cables will be unplugged. Look, quite perfect.
Just 1 minute to go now.
T minus 1 minute and counting.
50-second countdown.
40秒。
It's the 40-second countdown now.
明白。30秒。30秒。
30 seconds.
20秒。20秒。
20-second countdown.
10、9、8、7、6、5、4、3、2、1，点火！点火！起飞！ T0，腰动10，动3分，腰2秒，3拐4毫秒。腰动10，动3分，腰2秒，3拐4毫秒。
There it goes on its way to the space station.
And the next step will be the pitch over, which means that it changes its flight direction from a vertical one to the southeast.
Okay.
No, this is a video from the camera mounted on the launch vehicle. We can still see the 2 boosters.
4 boosters in total.
4 boosters mounted, yes.
文昌光学雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常，文昌飞行正常。
And the ground station's tracking is very normal, either the optical one or the radar.
And we'll be hearing lots of ground stations across different
they're
parts of
reporting
China
the status
tracking,
of the tracking status.
1210跟踪正常。
How many of these tracking stations does China have?
文昌光学雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常，文昌飞行正常。
And we have the ground station in the Xisha Island.
Oh, okay. See.
Okay.
But they've just announced that everything is
Great show.
as
We can see the
normal,
flame
as
of the
expected.
6 rocket engines, 4 on the boosters and 2 on the core stage.
阵地1212跟踪正常。
So how long before it reaches orbit then?
Well, about 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, okay.
Yeah. And the next critical step will be the separation of the first stage.
And once it, so 10 minutes until it reaches orbit, and then from
阵地
there,
315跟
it
踪
will
正常。
be how long before it reaches the space station?
文昌
As I
光学
mentioned,
雷
it
达跟
depends
踪正
on
常，
the
遥测
arrangement
信号
of the
正常，
flight
文昌
mission.
飞行正常。
Either several hours, but for the for the Mengtian mission, it takes more than 10 hours.
Right.
It depends on the position or the relative position of both targets.
通过令遥测信号正常。
More announcements from different stations.
We can
that
see the
things are
direction
going
has
as
already
normal.
changed from a vertical change to the
Yes,
southeast. And on the small screen window, we can see the 3D animation, which is based on the real data received from the ground station, which represents the real attitude of the launch vehicle. And you can see the communication links between the ground station and the launch vehicle itself.
So I mean, this docking process, I was reading, is actually one of potentially China's shortest, right, so far? About
Not
3
exactly.
hours?
And you can see that within several minutes, we will see the separation of the 4 boosters.
阵地1212跟踪正常。
It looks like everything is going well right now and as expected.
So the ground stations, including the readers and also the telemetry. Okay,
The
great.
boosters are being jettisoned now.
Very great view. And the 2 rocket engines on the first stage is still working. Okay.
But look, it's off now, isn't
一级
it?
分离。
We can see the separation of the first stage and the interstage.
Right, I was going to ask you what that little part was that just dropped off
exactly. So now the working of the second stage. As I mentioned, there are 4 rocket engines on the second stage called YF-115. And this is a camera inside the payload fairing. And then, okay, payload fairing is jettisoned because it is already out of the atmosphere.
Right. So the final stage would then be just the cargo spacecraft separating from that additional rocket
second
stage that we're seeing.
And it is very interesting. You see that the now you can see the 3D animation is working of the second stage, and the second stage have 4 engines. And it is very interesting that during these 4 engines, 2 are fixed, and the other 2 have vernier mechanisms. So before the end of the flight, we will first shut down the 2 engines fixed, and then it can very precisely adjust its trajectory with the other 2 engines.
Right, so we're looking at 2 different images here.
Yes,
one is
on the left is a camera mounted inside the payload fairing and looking frontward. And the second is the camera mounted backwards, just monitoring the status of the rocket engines.
And you get a good view of Earth as well from the camera.
We can see
the right.
curve of the horizon of the Earth.
But that's a view that the astronauts in the space station can see quite
So
frequently.
what we saw on the left screen, we can see a big dish is the antenna of the data relay satellite.
I see. So this, the cargo spaceship will be docking from the port that the Tianzhou-5 had just recently detached from.
Yes, it is a rear docking port of our Tianhe-1 core module. The Tianhe-1 core module has 3 docking ports, one on the front, one on the rear part, and the other one at the bottom of its node. the three, and as you mentioned, the rear docking port has already been freed by the separation of the Tianzhou-5 cargo ship.
So what would the other two docking ports then be used for?
The bottom docking port is now connected to the Tianzhou-14, the Tianzhou-14 manned spaceship, and just maybe several days later, the Tianzhou-15 will dock to the front docking port.
Shenzhou-15 will move. Okay, so with the Shenzhou-15 mission, all three of the docking ports will be fully occupied.
Exactly. That will be the maximum configuration of our Tiangong space station at this stage. A T-shaped 3-module and 2 manned spaceships and a cargo ship. That will be a combination of 6 spacecraft, nearly 100 tons.
So fully functional at that point.
Yes.
Has the space station had to do much adjustments to accommodate a wait for the cargo?
That's right, exactly, very right. You see that the attitude of the station must be adjusted for preparing to receive this Tianzhou-5. You know that, as we mentioned, they must go into the same orbital plane, but the position in the orbit must also meet some requirements. So just before the launch today, we must have some orbit maneuver of the Tiangong space station to meet the right requirement for the docking today.
Would that be a big adjustment? Is that something?
Not very big adjustment, just a slight change to make it, that the position of the space station is not too far from the point where the Tianzhou-5 entering the orbit. So that is the basic requirement for the fast rendezvous and docking.
And fast, Professor Yang, in terms of kind of internationally, what's the sort of fastest speed for rendezvous and docking?
About 2 hours. You know that the Progress cargo spacecraft liftoffs from Russia docked to the International Space Station less than 2 hours. So that is the fastest record. And this is, this is more important for the launch of the manned spacecraft. Because you know that, okay, the Lingshui ground station monitoring very normally reported. The flight is also normal.
There's various ground stations checking in.
Yeah. And you can also see the 3D animation, and you can see the lines, the dash lines is a data link between the ground station and the vehicle. And also the attitude now is the real status of the launch vehicle.
So 2 hours, just over 2 hours is the current record for docking, and you were saying that's important for manned missions.
Yeah,
to
because
save
you know that
time, right?
the inner volume of a spaceship is very, very narrow, so it's relatively inconvenient.
So the quicker, obviously, the better for the astronauts.
Like when you go to office, you don't want to stay a long time in your car.
What's China's record at the moment? What's China's fastest
for
time?
a manned spaceship, it's about 6 hours.
6 hours, okay.
Yeah.
And do you think for the Shenzhou-15, is China looking at reducing that time, or are we going for 6 hours?
As I mentioned, it depends on the arrangement of the mission.
Okay.
But we've already mastered this technology, so when necessary, it can be shorter.
Right.
So I believe the next step will be the shutdown of the 2 fixed engines, and will be some very precise adjustment of its trajectory.
And then after that, it would be the second stage separating.
Yeah.
So at the point when the second stage is separated, then the spacecraft will be in orbit already, or is that after?
After separation, the Tianzhou-5 will be in orbit, and the next critical step will be the unfolding of its solar panels.
Okay. And then with the solar panels unfolded, so what's powering the spacecraft at that point?
Okay, as I mentioned, the 2 fixed engines has already been shut down. And the other 2 will be shut down shortly. It's already in vacuum condition, so you can...
So it's been 10 minutes since launch.
The vernier engines are already done. Very beautiful view from the rocket.
So the spaceship is now on its own?
Yeah. So this is a video from the camera mounted on the second stage of our Long March 7 launch vehicle.
So what we're looking at now is the tail end of the spacecraft.
Yeah.
Right.
And the next, you can see the flame of the attitude control engines on the Tianzhou-5.
And that's helping it to adjust its
flight. It's adjusting its attitude now.
Right.
And the next step will be unfolding of the solar panels.
And what would these solar panels do?
Well, you see that it provides a continuous power supply to the Tianzhou-5 cargo ship, and even after it is docked to the Tiangong space station, the solar panels will also provide part of the electricity to the whole station, because all the power supply system is integrated to one system.
But there are solar panels on everything that we've seen launched so far. All the labs have them too, so they're all helping to power the space station.
And also, you know that at this stage, based on the telemetry data, we will measure the precise orbital parameters of the Tianzhou-5, and only it meets some threshold, we can announce that it is a successful launch. Because the accuracy is also a very critical factor. Not only go into the orbit, but the accuracy. Only the accuracy meets some requirement, we can ensure the docking can be conducted normally.
Because with previous launches, they measured the success by the solar panels opening up.
As we can hear the voice of the ground control, that's the orbital parameters of the Tianzhou-5 has already been sent.
So 6 tons of cargo, and then in total, what's the weight of this spacecraft?
The total mass of this Tianzhou-5 spacecraft is about 13.2 tons. You know, the maximum is 13.5 tons. So this time is a little bit small than its maximum configuration. But still, it's sufficient for the Shenzhou-15 crew.
So earlier we had the little panel to our right, and that's the camera from the second stage.
Yep.
The rocket, wasn't it?
And also we have the telemetry data sending the videos from the Tianzhou cargo ship itself.
So what will happen to all these various jettisoned parts of the rocket then?
Well, it will deorbited several days later, because you know that they do not have any propulsion on the second stage.
No.
Theoretically speaking, it is in the same orbit of the Tianzhou-5 cargo ship. But you know that this is not the final orbit of the Tianzhou-5. The Tianzhou-5 will conduct several orbit maneuver to chasing the Tiangong space station.
Okay.
But you can see that from the 3D animation, the panels are unfolded.
4 panels altogether. 6 panels.
3 on each side.
3 on each
solar
side,
wings.
6 altogether.
Yeah. It's different from the Shenzhou spaceship. The Shenzhou spaceship, although the panel is smaller, but it has 4 panels on each side.
So it could be hours now before the docking process will
Exactly.
begin. And then that docking itself then could take another few hours or so. And then I guess, this is great for the astronauts. They're expecting a lot up there. As you said,
they are waiting for their new food, their fresh food.
And especially for the Lunar New Year as well. How long do you think is it scheduled for the 2 crew, the Shenzhou-14 and the Shenzhou-15, to be kind of concurrently in the space station? How long?
Usually they will stay together for 1 to 2 weeks. Usually, probably 10 days also. You know that this is really important. By the construction of our Tiangong space station, the tasks, the daily tasks, become more and more complex and more intensive. So deliver the task face to face will be very, very important for the normal operation of our Tiangong space station, and this will be the most effective way for the conducting their daily works.
And then from that point onwards, so once the Shenzhou-15 crew gets to the space station at the end of this year, that would mean that China's space station will be permanently manned, right? Likely.
Actually speaking, it is permanently manned during when the Shenzhou-14 crew entered the station.
Yeah,
so that is the right moment. But it is also very interesting. You know that the first moment of the permanent residence of those who can speak Chinese start from the Shenzhou 13 crew. You know that when Shenzhou 13 crew left our Tianzhou space station, they still have some astronauts inside the International Space Station who can speak Chinese. Mr. Matthias Moria from Germany and also Miss Samantha Cristoforetti can speak Chinese. The chief of the Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site will announce the result of this launch.
That's right, we'll be hearing that very soon.
I believe we can see the big red screen soon.
Yeah.
Officials, experts, and comrades. Based on the flight data from Long March 7Y6 carrier rocket and report from Beijing Command and Control Center, Tianzhou-5 cargo spaceship has entered the preset orbit, and the solar panel has been unfolded, and Tianzhou-5 is in good condition. Now I declare the launch of Tianzhou-5 a full success.
There it is, that red screen that we were waiting for.
Here, on behalf of Wenchang Launch Command's office, I would like to extend a warm congratulations to all participating teams, personnel, and research institutes. And my appreciation goes to the leaders and experts on site for your great support. This is the end of the launch mission. Thank you.
And so the control of the spacecraft is changed from this Wenchang Spacecraft Launch Site to the Beijing Flight Control Center.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you can see the staff there taking off their lab coats.
Yeah.
Their task is done for the day. So that's it. So that's the final mission, supply mission of this current phase. And then the phase after this would be the development phase, right? I'm seeing here.
Exactly.
Application development stage. What does that entail then?
You know that during this flight, there will be some very small CubeSat made by the students in Macau.
Right.
And it will be checked by the astronauts in our space station and will be released from the Mengtian module. And it is the first satellite dedicated for education and outreach made by middle school students in China and released from the station. Although we have other this kind of satellites launched before, but not from our space station. So this is also, well, I believe that this is a very important cargo of our Tianzhou-5 mission. And I believe also that just before the end of this year, according to the announcement of the China's Manned Space Agency, there will also be some devices made by other countries brought to the station, either by this Tianzhou-5 or by the Shenzhou 15 crew, and conducting scientific research on the station. Before this, these kind of scientific research devices has been designed and made by the scientists from 17 countries. 9 of these joint experiments conducted and called by the jointly called by the United Nations for Outer Space Affairs, or UNOSA, and the China Manned Space Agency. So this is the start of our international cooperation of this Tiangong space station with other countries. Very, very meaningful. And you see that it is very interesting. Miss Samantha Cristoforetti, as I mentioned, the Italian female astronaut, just before she goes back to the Earth, she posted the poems in our 兰亭集序 when she before she left the International Space Station. So she's already very famous in China. I believe that more and more foreign astronauts can speak Chinese, and sooner or later they can appear in our Tiangong space station.
That's something to look forward to. Well, our reporter Sun Ye is at the Beijing Aerospace Command Center, and we spoke to her at the beginning of the show, so let's go back to her now. Hi, Sun Ye. Sorry, the mission is completed. It must be a good atmosphere over there.
Well, the launch is completed. We also heard that announcement of success here. We only had a brief spell of applause here because most of the celebration would be taking place in Hainan, in Wenchang, the launch place. But here at the Beijing Control Center, they are readying for the next step. Tianzhou-5 has successfully lifted off from space with the record 6.7 tons of supplies, a record for itself. And then it's going to actually, it has already entered into a rendezvous and docking program, the process that they're going to employ what they call a fast rendezvous and docking technology, and finally arrive and dock with the existing T-shaped China Space Station assembly in a matter of hours. Now, as we said earlier, it's taking a record load of supplies, including those for Shenzhou 14 and 15, the taikonauts crew. And the taikonauts, they are also going to oversee the docking and rendezvous process. They will be stepping in if they are needed, even though it's largely a automated process. Also, a little bit update from that launch. We heard that the solar panel wings extended as according to plan. It entered into the rendezvous and docking process according to plan. And I think you are hearing right now, everything is as planned. Another announcement from the commander here. And if it goes through smoothly, we will also be updating you, I think later, how the taikonauts are unpacking the much anticipated cargo from Tianzhou-5. Jiayang.
Thank you so much for updating us. That's Sun Ye in Beijing. Well, Professor Yang, so much in there for them to be unpacking. What do you think the first thing will be that they'll do, the astronauts, once the Tianzhou-5 docks with the space station?
Well, you know that after docking and they form an airtight sealing connection, they were first checking the atmosphere inside the Tianzhou-5 cargo ship. You know that the Tianzhou-5 has a surface module with propellants provided to the station, but this is an unpressurized section. While the astronauts can entering the cargo bay is pressurized. Right. But before entering the cargo bay, they need to first open the hatch between the Tianhe-1 core module's rear docking port hatch and the channel between the two vehicles. And also there is another hatch, the front hatch of the Tianzhou cargo ship. So before the opening of these two hatches, they must checking that the pressure difference between the two segments, and there is a valve called the balance valve. They must first open this valve and make the pressure difference to 0, and then checking the status if there are any hazardous gas inside the atmosphere. They must do something to deal with that, and then opening the two hatches. So that the first thing first, the environmental control is very important.
Make sure it's absolutely safe.
Exactly,
right?
for the opening of the hatch, and then checking the status.
All right, and then that will be, so that's kind of the first manual involvement that these astronauts will have, right? Because this whole process for the docking will be automated. Yeah. If all goes well, anyway, that they should be needed for the backup. And then when do you think they'll be able to dig into those dumplings?
I believe
they'll have to wait.
Yes, they will enjoy these dumplings during the Chinese Lunar New Year.
So they have to be patiently waiting another few months for the other crew to enter as well.
Exactly.
What happens with the food that gets brought up there, actually? I'm curious. I mean, this is all pre-packaged, made food. They're not assembling anything on the space station themselves.
All these are pre-packaged. You know that according to the introduction of the astronaut system of the Astronaut Science and Research Center, we can even store the food for several years. So it's already, and also there are more than 100 different kinds of delicious food for astronauts every day. The nutrition, that not only for them to enjoy this food, but also very critical for them to prevent the loss of bones and the weakening of muscles. This is really, really important for us. We don't have much experience before, but during in this Tiangong Space Station phase, we've already mastered the necessary technologies to provide sufficient nutrition to our astronauts.
Right. And I'm also sure that they are looking forward to a change in the menu as well, perhaps some new stuff going up there.
That's right.
Well, Professor Yang, thank you so much for analysing all this with us and sitting through yet another launch with us. That's Professor Yang Yuguang with the Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. And so the Tianzhou-5 cargo spacecraft is on its way to the China space station. And thank you so much for watching this special coverage, and we will leave it there. But we'll also have some scenes for you now from key moments of the launch. I'm Jiao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for watching.
3、2、1，点火！起飞！
圆满成功。